The largest token sale happening in 2025 is none other than Pump from the Pumpfun team. And this is happening in just a couple days on July 12th. So in this video, I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know about the upcoming sale, what we know so far about the Pump token, as well as my personal thoughts on where it's going to go. Now, before getting into this video, remember none of this is financial advice. And if you end up finding some value in it, give it a thumbs up. Without further ado, let's get into it. First things first, if you don't know anything about Pumpfun, they released about a year ago and quickly became one of the most profitable apps as well as startups in the entire world. Within their first year, they generated around $700 million of revenue, and it was all from making it easy to create meme coins on the Solana blockchain. They got rid of all of the different dev requirements that you used to need, and because of that, it allowed people to just make tokens and gamble, and there were days where they were making upwards of $10 million just with all of these different trades. And over time, they added live streaming, different ways to make content. And on top of that, they even eventually made their own Pump Swap, which is an AMM DEX. So instead of the liquidity going to Radium, it is now going to their own liquidity pools where they're able to make even more money. Recently, the Pumpfun team announced that there will be a Pump token, and this is launching Saturday, July 12th. And unlike a lot of major VC-backed tokens, this is actually going to be available to anyone in the public with about 15% of the supply. And their main mission is to turn Pumpfun just from a meme coin launchpad platform into the next TikTok, into the next Twitch, into the next Facebook, where people can go on there, make content, launch tokens, talk about different things, and be incentivized more than any other platform out there. The next steps for Pumpfun is replacing these different existing social media platforms and have one that gives instead of takes. And whether you're a trader, creator, startup founder, or anything else, Pumpfun will allow you to tap into this global network of instant money and attention. And it's pretty interesting because when you think about it, this is such a revolutionary way to actually raise funds as a founder and also be able to have a platform where people can easily and directly invest in you or your idea. So I definitely see where they're trying to go with this vision. And we've seen a lot of other competing platforms recently, such as Bonk, Jupiter, and pretty much everyone in the game trying to launch their own launchpad like this because of how profitable it's been. The details about the token utility still haven't been fully fleshed out, but they're saying that they're considering different utility mechanisms such as fee rebates, token buybacks, or other incentives and promotions. And I saw a rumor that they're going to do 25% of their revenue to buy back their token to make everything incentively aligned. But once again, that's a rumor, and I don't know how true that's going to be. When it comes to the tokenomics of this, 33% is being sold on this ICO initial coin offering. 18% has already been sold to private investors, and those guys are getting the same exact rate as anyone that buys in the public. The other 15% is completely open to anyone, unless you're a US citizen like myself, or if you're from the UK, and it is required on KYC, and you can either do that on the Pumpfun website or the different 6 centralized exchanges they partnered with on the launch. They also have another 24% reserved for community and ecosystem incentives. The rumor is a percentage of this is going to be for an airdrop for Pumpfun users that participated on either PumpSwap or before a token bonded. And if you use something like Volex or Photon or a lot of these different trading apps, you should be able to qualify for that airdrop as well whenever there's more details on this. Outside of that, the 13% to existing investors was over the course of the last year, and there are some investors that got in all the way at a $5 million market cap, and with this token, they're launching at a $4 billion FDV. So be aware that some of these super early investors were able to get in, and now are up 200, 500, or even 800x. But the good thing is that those tokens are locked for at least a year, so they can't access them right away. Outside of that, they have an ecosystem fund, they have live streaming in order to incentivize live streamers, they have the liquidity for centralized exchanges, and they also have that 20% to the team, which also has a 1-year cliff on it. As far as the centralized exchanges where you can participate if you wanted to do this, you can either do it on their Pumpfun site or Bybit, Kraken, BitGet, MEXC, KuCoin, or Gate.com. And I expect this to be one of those tokens that are also listed on Coinbase and Binance day one. One extremely important thing to point out here that I didn't even realize at first is that these tokens that you're buying will not be transferable or tradable for the first 48 to 70 72 hours. So that means this token sale is going to happen. You're going to get your tokens, and most likely only the tokens that are listed on centralized liquidity are going to be able to be bought and sold, which means that odds are you're going to be stuck with those tokens and see a lot of trading on Pump before you can even do anything with them. When it comes to the actual emission schedule, we're expecting around 55% of the tokens to be unlocked day one. And this means the circulating market cap is just over a $2 billion valuation. And then the FDV is going to be at $4 billion. And once again, you can see these early investors and team have that 1 year cliff so they don't get their tokens right away. And then pretty much everything else is going to be available day one outside of being able to trade those tokens for the first 48 to 72 hours. And once again, when it comes to an airdrop, we have no idea how that's going to work, if they're going to airdrop it all at once, what the qualifications are, but definitely pay attention to it. I think a lot of people were saying they expect anywhere between 10 and 12% for that airdrop. So if you did do a decent amount of trading, it might end up being worth a nice bag. In the description of this video, I'm going to have not only that thread I showed you from Pumpfun, but also this thread from Elon, however you want to say his name, who's one of the founders of Pump. And the big thing that he was saying about this token launch is that he really wants to improve the overall user experience and double down on the social aspect of the site, and that they're already working on different acquisitions, one of which was KOL Scan, which tracks a lot of traders and messages and all of this stuff. And they just announced that acquisition, I believe, yesterday. One of the things I really like to do for these pre-TGE tokens is look at the pre-trading markets to see where the demand is. And right now on Hyperliquid, they've had over $120 million worth of volume and a current price of 0.0053, which means it's already about 25% over this initial coin offering price. And this makes me think that a lot of people believe this token is going to sell out quickly and they won't be able to participate in the sale. And that's why they're looking into some of these pre-market options. Something like Hyperliquid is also super nice if you're someone from the US or the UK in this situation, because it allows you to buy this token today, especially since you can't participate in the ICO. And another benefit of potentially buying on a pre-market like Hyperliquid is that you're going to be able to trade those tokens day one nonstop. You can trade them right now. Whereas if you buy in this ICO, one, you might not be fast enough, but two, you won't be able to trade those tokens for 48 to 72 hours, where on Hyperliquid you can. And if you're someone that has never used Hyperliquid and wants to try it out, I actually have my own referral link that I'll put in this description, where you can click on that link or put in this referral tab, Jellycubes, and I'll get 10% of the trading fees, which will help me out as a channel if you want to do that. If you don't want to use Hyperliquid and you don't mind KYC, Binance also has pre-trading available, and this is going for around 0.0052. So within a couple percent of what's going on with Hyperliquid. Now, before going over my thoughts, if you're someone that likes staying up to date on all these different alphas and plays and different token launches, check out my project Jellycubes. We're an alpha community of over 3 years now, where we go over a lot of these plays. We are located on Cardano for around 500 ADA. I think it's like a $250 floor, and that gets you access to our group where we talk about all these things. But if you don't want to get into Cardano or spend as much up front, we're going to be opening up a WAP subscription to our alpha group in the very nearby future. So stay tuned to that. And I believe we're only going to be charging like $20 or $25 a month in the beginning to get access to the group. Now, where do I personally see this token going? And I want to stress here that I have been pretty off when it comes to trying to predict where prices of tokens go, simply because, in my opinion, there's a lot of manipulation that happens behind the scenes. I mean, just the fact that you can't use or trade these tokens for the first 48 to 72 hours makes me think that these centralized exchanges and market makers are about to make an absolute killing when this sells out and people can't actually trade their own tokens and are just trading that very limited supply. And because of all this market manipulation, it's really hard for me to give a price estimate. And to make it even more complicated than that, we're talking about over $600 million needing to be sent into this sale just to sell it out. And then you also need additional buyers after the fact for this token to pump. So it's a very unique situation. You have a protocol that's generated a lot of revenue, but now has a lot of competition. The revenue for Pumpfun has actually dropped 80-90% since earlier this year back in January. You then have one of the biggest raises ever seen in crypto, but at the same time, you have a platform that's generated a lot of money, has a ton of capabilities, and is rapidly expanding their team. If we look at it strictly from a revenue and market cap perspective, a 2 billion, 2.1 billion circulating market cap, which is where it's going to be off the get-go if it's around 55% of the supply, would put it around Arbitrum's level, around the 45th largest token when it comes to circulating market cap, and then you would have a $4 billion FDV with that. Now, revenue in crypto doesn't necessarily equate to price. There's a lot of different things that go into it, but I did some research on ChatGPT and found that the all-time cumulative revenue for Pumpfun was about $695 million. Now, at the current trend, we're looking at $347 million a year, and that's about $950,000 a day. Now, a lot of days are averaging around that $528,000 to $630,000 level, and this is a huge drop from that $7 million a day that I was talking about back in January before they had all this competition and while there was a lot of meme coin mania going on. Regardless, though, that is still an absolute ton of revenue, and when you go to DeFi Llama, you can actually track the top blockchains by the amount of money that they're generating. And what you'll see here is Arbitrum generated about $280,000 today, and I know the numbers from a day-to-day standpoint can be completely different, and when you compare that to something like Pumpfun, Pumpfun is generating over 2 times the revenue of Arbitrum, yet the starting circulating market cap would be around the same market cap as Arbitrum. And it gets even crazier if you look at some of these other ones. Tron, for example, only generated $84,000 today. You look at something like Sui, which is the 12th largest token, and they generated $234,000 today. You then look at something like AVAX, and it's 6 times the amount of revenue as AVAX. Polygon Matic, same thing, about 6 times the amount of revenue. So it's really hard to price where this should be, but if you're strictly going on revenue and knowing that they're going to be doing a lot of buybacks, then it makes me think that this valuation isn't as crazy as everyone is saying. If I was to give my honest thoughts on this, which is probably going to be completely wrong, I would say that that $600 million is going to fill up a lot faster than people expect, especially since they were able to sell a higher amount at the same terms to just private investors. So you think when you open this up to anyone, it'll sell out quickly. The fact that you aren't able to sell those tokens for the first couple of days, and it also means that there's going to be a low amount of liquidity or actual tokens circulating during that time, I would expect that this token would actually pump really hard unless the market makers completely manipulate this and are making all of the money on the spread. If it does sell out really quickly, I would think that markets like Hyperliquid, where you can buy the token now and already trade it, I would think those would pump simply because a lot of people would start to FOMO as they missed out on it. And because there aren't a lot of active tokens tradable, that price of the token could be going crazy on these different centralized exchanges. If they do a massive airdrop right away, you could see a massive dump from people doing that. And at the same time, if the tokens sell out very slowly or not as quick as people expect, you'd also see people panic over on the Hyperliquid side and start dumping those tokens. And we could see a dump on the centralized exchanges too. Right now, there's just way too many different variables going on, but I personally do think we can see a little bit of a pump from this. I think that most likely when people get their airdrop, they're just going to dump it pretty hard. And then after that happens, if you're bullish on Pumpfun, I could see it trend up, but this is never something I'd want to hold more than, let's say, 7 or 8 months, simply because those private investors that got in so early at 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, as soon as those tokens unlock in a year, they're just going to be dumping hard, and there's probably a good chance that the team is going to do the same. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to be making a lot more alpha related content on this channel, as well as content going over different projects and doing case studies and stuff like that. So if you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe. And once again, check out Jellycubes or stay tuned for when we open up that WAP, and I'll catch you guys later.